I have been tracking weather for years, and I will be straight with you this week. Stop me cold. Right now, 3 states are under active flood warnings and 100 million Americans are in the impact zone. Triple-digit heat baking Montana while supercells are spinning up across Texas this very afternoon. A senior forecaster at the Storm Prediction Center said this omega blocking pattern is unlike anything in a decade. Folks, the jet stream has locked itself into the Greek letter omega, and that changes everything this week. What that means is a massive ridge of high pressure sealed across the middle of the country. That ridge is baking the northern plains and southern Canada with record-breaking heat every single day. On both flanks, low-pressure systems are spinning up storms on the west coast and all along the east. Down south, subtropical jet stream moisture is fueling round after round of heavy rain across the Gulf states. This omega block is flat-out manufacturing 2 completely different weather seasons at the exact same time. You can have a 100-degree afternoon in Billings while New Orleans drowns in flood rains same Tuesday. No joke, that contrast deepens through the rest of this week, and it is already hitting your neighborhood. Let's get into the immediate threat. It starts in Texas this Tuesday afternoon, and it is already developing. The Storm Prediction Center has posted a slight risk for severe weather across central and south Texas today. San Antonio, San Angelo, Del Rio, and Laredo, y'all are squarely in the bullseye for dangerous storms this evening. We are tracking supercells with the potential for large hail, damaging winds, and 1 or 2 tornadoes. Surface dew points are sitting in the mid to upper 60s already, providing flat-out dangerous storm fuel. Deep layer wind shear is running 30 to 40 knots. That is more than enough to spin up rotating thunderstorms. These storms will fire hard between noon and 6 p.m. and then push toward Austin and San Antonio by evening. The main threats in order: large hail first, damaging winds second, and brief tornadoes are also possible. By Wednesday morning, those storms will be pushing through Houston and Corpus Christi along the coast. Heavy rainfall will linger along coastal Texas through Wednesday morning, even as the severe threat fades. But here is the kicker that most people are completely sleeping on. The Weather Prediction Center has issued a slight risk for excessive rainfall across a massive chunk of Texas. Flood warnings are already active from Odessa eastward through the Big Spring and San Angelo region. Earlier this week, parts of North Texas saw 2.5 inches of rain in under an hour. That is not a slow-soaking rain. That is a wall of water that will flood your street before you can react. Rainfall rates of 2 to 2.5 inches per hour are confirmed by live radar across the region. Flash flooding is the #1 weather killer in America. Please take this threat seriously, folks. Jim, a retired electrician in San Angelo, told me the streets were already running yesterday evening. He is right to be on high alert. This pattern keeps the moisture flowing through at least Wednesday night. That is not a gentle soaking rain. This moisture is aggressive, and it is absolutely not done yet. Now, I want to flag something that is not getting enough attention in the Ohio Valley today. Kentucky sits inside a marginal risk corridor for tornadoes this Tuesday afternoon and evening. A weak mid-level disturbance is crossing into a subtle surface boundary right through the heart of Kentucky. Paducah, Lexington, Richmond, and Bowling Green, you're in a zone where brief tornadoes are possible. These setups are sneaky because the instability looks borderline, but the wind shear is there. Margaret, a retired teacher in Lexington, messaged that she noticed the sky turning an odd greenish color. She is right to pay close attention. Water-loaded downdrafts in Kentucky could produce strong winds fast. Clarksville, Tennessee, and Bowling Green, Kentucky also carry a slight risk for excessive rainfall today. This is not a situation where you wait for an official warning before you act. Stay alert all afternoon. Up in the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the eastern Dakotas have isolated storm potential today. Coverage will be scattered and impacts should be limited, but locally heavy downpours are possible. If you're in Fargo, Minneapolis, or Green Bay, this is not an all clear. Just stay weather aware. Northern Maine is also watching a prefrontal convective band sweeping in from the St. Lawrence Valley. Wind gusts of 55 to 70 miles per hour are possible in northern Maine between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. tonight. That is a brief but violent window, Frank, a farmer in Presque Isle. You need to secure loose equipment now. Now here's the pivot. Wednesday is where the severe weather story shifts east in a big way. The entire mid-Atlantic corridor is under a slight risk for severe weather on Wednesday, May 27th. Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, West Virginia, and eastern Kentucky, y'all are all in the impact zone tomorrow. Damaging wind gusts are the primary threat as a strong shortwave trough sweeps down from Ontario. A surface boundary drapes from southern Ohio across West Virginia into the coastal Virginia and Delaware zone. Warm, humid air is already in place south of that boundary, and it is primed to fire by mid-afternoon. Warm, humid air is locked south of that boundary. Good grief. It is primed to explode by mid-afternoon. Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and Philadelphia. You are on the northern edge, but gusty storms are possible. Richmond, Virginia sits squarely in the highest wind threat zone for Wednesday. Do not take that lightly. Along the Shenandoah Valley and I-81 corridor, downed trees and brief power outages are legitimate concerns. Eastern Kentucky and the New River Valley in Virginia, damaging winds could arrive without much warning. Coastal North Carolina and the northeastern barrier islands need to keep a close eye on Wednesday evening. The Outer Banks of North Carolina and northeastern coastal sections heads up. Watch Wednesday evening closely. Charleston and Parkersburg, West Virginia, you have a slight risk for heavy rainfall on Wednesday too. Tell me in the comments, are you in the Mid-Atlantic? What are conditions looking like in your city today? Let me take a moment and explain exactly why this Omega block is so remarkable for late May. High pressure locked over southern Canada is essentially building a heat dome that is baking everything below. Let me explain why this Omega block is creating conditions that are, I kid you not, genuinely remarkable. Montana hit near triple digits today. That is not a weather anomaly. That is a record-shattering heat event. The Central Dakotas are flirting with 95 to 98 degrees, smashing daily records set decades ago. Green Bay, Wisconsin recorded 91 degrees today, a record high for this date that stood for over 50 years. Near Des Moines, Iowa, temperatures are approaching 88 to 90 degrees with no relief in sight through Thursday. Good news though, this is a dry heat, so nights drop comfortably back into the 50s and low 60s. You will be cranking the air conditioning during the day and opening your windows at night across the Midwest. Meanwhile, the southeast and east coast are sitting in cool, rain-soaked air that is keeping temperatures down. That wild contrast between scorching north-central states and cool, wet east coast defines this whole pattern. I need to stop right here because what just dropped in the latest model run is a genuine gut punch. Starting June 1st, a conveyor belt of Caribbean moisture is about to slam the entire southeast coast hard. Precipitable water levels are forecast to hit 3 standard deviations above normal. Honey, that is historic. We are talking double-digit rainfall totals stacking up across the South in under 10 days. Georgia, the Carolinas, Florida, and Virginia, you better believe it, this moisture surge has your name on it. South Florida is entering what forecasters call a sustained tropical moisture event, and it starts Wednesday. Now here is the longer game, and this one affects your entire summer all the way into July. That Omega block starts cracking between June 8th and June 15th as a major global pattern shift kicks in. Once it erodes, the heat retreats west while the Midwest and Ohio Valley flip from bone dry to soaking wet. Illinois, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, y'all have been stuck in a dry spell, but that changes fast mid-June. The East Coast stays cool and rain-soaked well into early June with below-average temperatures locked in solid. The Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and Midwest flip from bone dry to wet conditions within a matter of days. Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, and Michigan, you have been stuck in an abnormally dry stretch this spring. Starting around June 8th through the 15th, the models show moisture finally pushing back into your region. By the 4th of July window, derecho-style storm complexes could become the dominant threat for the Midwest. Here is where the story gets truly serious for the South, and this one is already moving fast. Caribbean moisture is now surging inland with precipitable water levels 3 standard deviations above normal. Folks, 3 standard deviations means this moisture surge is in the top 1% for late May. South Florida is entering the first sustained tropical moisture event of the entire 2026 season starting today. Tampa, Orlando, Miami, and Fort Lauderdale expect heavy rain, dangerous lightning, and flooding daily. Rainfall rates topping 2 inches per hour are being clocked across Central and South Florida today. New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport, this Gulf moisture slug is heading your way through Wednesday. Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi are in the conveyor belt of this moisture through the rest of the week. The Carolinas and the entire Southeast are going to see repeated rounds of tropical moisture through June 5th. Between June 2nd and June 5th, some areas could stack up double-digit rainfall totals over 10 days. Northern Florida is locked in an exceptional drought, and this pattern is about to erase it hard and fast. Too much of a good thing is real here. Drought-hardened ground cannot absorb this much rain quickly. Donna, a retired nurse in Savannah, asked if she needs a flood plan. Yes, Donna, you absolutely do. Serial flood watches are going to be issued across the Deep South as we flip the calendar into June. Now, I want to be straight with you about something that every forecaster is keeping one eye on. I want to be straight with you about something every serious forecaster is quietly keeping one eye on. The European model shows a low forming near the Florida Panhandle and tracking up the southeast coast. It moves through Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, strengthening near the Outer Banks by June 5th. The GFS model agrees on the general track but keeps the system a bit further offshore. Both models agree there is something brewing whether it goes tropical or nor'easter type. Impacts are real. The Carolinas, Virginia, and the Delmarva Peninsula need to watch this window starting around June 4th. Probability sits at 20 to 30% low, but absolutely worth watching every single day this week. This track, Florida Panhandle, Georgia Coast, Outer Banks, is historically one of the most common early tracks. Not gonna lie, this track, Florida Panhandle to Outer Banks, is one of the most historically common we see. If you want specific timing for your city or county, drop it in the comments and I will cover it tonight. Let me close out with the threat that carries the most risk between now and mid-August derecho season. A derecho is a fast-moving monster storm complex that covers hundreds of miles in under 24 hours. It produces straight-line winds over 70 miles per hour, widespread power outages, and flash flooding. The highest risk corridor runs from southeastern South Dakota all the way down through central Kentucky. That corridor passes through Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, and eastern Missouri, the heart of farm country. Peak derecho season this year is forecast between July 15th and August 15th. Mark that on your calendar. Before we close out, folks, there is one more threat that deserves your full, undivided attention. Now is the time to think about secured storage, equipment anchoring, and your county emergency plan. These storms are not like regular thunderstorms. They arrive fast, spread wide, and hit without mercy. Wind-wise, the Southwest is getting hammered today. Las Vegas could see gusts over 40 miles per hour. The Nebraska Panhandle is also dealing with strong and gusty winds through this afternoon and evening. By Wednesday, those strongest winds shift into Utah, Arizona, Cheyenne, and Rapid City, Wyoming. The Rockies and the West Coast remain the windiest regions through the rest of May, plain and simple. There is genuinely good news buried in all of this. The drought is easing across the southern plains. The Rockies, Southeast, and Gulf states were badly parched, and all three are finally seeing real moisture. This is the pattern reversal those regions needed, but flooding risk is now the trade-off to manage. 3 states under flood warnings, 100 million Americans in the impact zone, and this pattern deepens. Stay ahead of it, drop your city in the comments, and I will be back tonight with the very latest updates. Western Maryland and the Virginia Piedmont are in the thick of Wednesday's wind threat zone. Interstate 70 through Frederick and Hagerstown. Maryland could see downed trees blocking lanes by 3 p.m. For the D.C. metro area, Northern Virginia, Montgomery County, Prince George's County stay storm aware all day. Philadelphia suburbs and South Jersey sit on the northern fringe, but gusty storms could still arrive Wednesday. Nashville, Tennessee is picking up scattered heavy rain through Tuesday and Wednesday morning. Memphis could see repeated rounds of flooding rain as the Gulf moisture stream pulses northward. Jackson, Mississippi, and Mobile, Alabama are in the core of the tropical moisture corridor this week. Atlanta sits in a transition zone where heavy afternoon storms will pop and produce quick flooding. Charlotte and Raleigh should prepare for rounds of afternoon storms through the rest of the work week. The Appalachian Mountains are acting as a funnel. Moisture is getting squeezed and concentrated there. By Thursday, the severe threat shifts out west Montana. Idaho, Oregon, and Washington are in the zone. A shortwave trough rotating around the California upper low will spark afternoon thunderstorms Thursday. Hail and damaging winds are possible across the northern Rockies and Pacific Northwest Thursday afternoon. Billings, Missoula, Boise, and Portland should have their severe weather plans ready by Thursday afternoon. This is the same ridge that has been cooking the northern plains, now being undercut from the west. That is the full picture from Texas today all the way through June, and it keeps shifting by the hour. Mark my words, the forecasters sleeping on this Gulf moisture surge are going to get caught flat-footed. Here's what I want to know from you. Are you more worried about the flooding or the heat this week? Drop your city below, and the most requested location gets its own dedicated segment in tonight's update. 3 states under flood warnings, 100 million Americans in the impact zone, and this is just Tuesday. Check back tonight because the 6 p.m. model run just dropped data that is going to change this forecast.